We've got breaking news from college football where Indiana has climbed to number 3 in this week's AP Top 25 after beating Oregon on Saturday. It's the highest ranking in program history. Meanwhile, Ohio State strengthened its grip on number 1 with 50 first-place votes. Number 2, Miami got 13 first-place votes. Indiana received the other 3. How about that? Texas A&M and Ole Miss swapping spots to round out that top 5. Ole Miss kind of playing with their food there against Washington State, but still got that win. Oregon dropped to 8. While how about this? If we move to the final page, you will see that Texas is back in the AP Top 25 at number 21 after defeating Oklahoma in the Red River rivalry. See a lot of non-ranked to ranked also joining the party. Utah, Cincinnati, and Nebraska. Welcome to the AP Top 25. Here to react to a brand new college football AP Top 25, we have Bud Elliott, Damian Harris, and Brad Crawford is joining us remotely. And let's start with the Oklahoma Sooners because John Mateer, he was back, but not good necessarily. And I'm curious who we should or what we should essentially blame this on. Is it the hand or just is this what Oklahoma we think looks like?
Look, I think Mateer is somebody who has to carry Oklahoma in every game. He's been extremely risky as a player so far. A lot of times he's been throwing balls that should have been picked in prior games against Michigan and against Auburn. They were not. The difference in this game, Texas called those interceptions he threw.
Yeah, no, I agree with Bud. I feel like the way that Oklahoma played yesterday, that's how they played all season. I mean, healthy John Mateer, hurt John Mateer. They played this way all year. They've been fortunate enough to it's not what it was, it's what it could have been for them. You know, they had that success. Well, what could have been is what happened against Texas yesterday. This is a good defense for Texas. They showed up, they played physical in the run game. They forced John Mateer to look for the big play, which is what Oklahoma's offense has relied on all season long. And then they capitalized when they got him to press and try to throw the ball downfield. The interception before the end of the first half, that was a perfect example of making John Mateer, keep him in the pocket, make him beat you with his arm. He's gonna look for the big play. They ended up picking him off. I think this is exactly what Oklahoma is. Texas just found a way to capitalize on it.
I thought Mateer had the look of a guy who came in a little rusty, as if he hadn't played in a couple weeks, nor has he had practice reps. And, you know, maybe Brent Venables rushed him back, but 3 interceptions, certainly a shocker. I think the Texas defense showed really what it has all season outside of the Florida game. This is one of the more elite units on that side of the ball in college football. And for Oklahoma, fellas, there's a reason we have not had the Sooners in our playoff projection at CBS Sports for weeks. 6 games left for the Sooners. 5 of them are against current top 15 competition. This is a black and blue schedule for Brent Venables left. And if his quarterback's not 100%, this is an Oklahoma team that looks more like a 9-win team than one that we thought could potentially get to the bracket.
And no end zone trips for Oklahoma, shut out in the second half, 3 interceptions in the loss. But Brad mentioned that schedule. You see a lot of numbers next to those teams. Number 5, Ole Miss. Number 11, Tennessee. Number 6, Alabama. 16, Missouri. 10, LSU. That is an absolute gauntlet, but also life in the SEC. Let's check out life in the Big Ten, though, because we all wanted to know who is this year's Indiana? I don't even think Indiana is this year's Indiana because they're better than last year's IU, going up to number 3 in the AP poll after stealing a win in Autzen. Brad, what do you think of the Hoosiers?
There's not a team nationally right now with a pair of wins better than Indiana. I know Alabama and Miami both have 3 top 25 wins, but Indiana's beaten 2 top 10 teams, beat Illinois by 50, and then go on the road and end Oregon's 18-game home winning streak, the longest in the country. And they did it shaking off a pick 6 late in that game. I think any other team outside of Kirk Cignetti's confident squad in Bloomington may have floundered there and lost to Oregon, but just, you know, testament to how well coached this football team is, how together they play. And Indiana this season looks better than the 2024 team that finished 11-1 before losing to Notre Dame in the playoffs. So Kirk Cignetti has it rolling right now for the Hoosiers, and they're certainly a team worthy right now of a top 4, top 5 seed.
Ladies and gentlemen, I went into yesterday thinking that Alabama had the best resume in college football. Well, here comes Indiana walking into Eugene, Oregon, in Autzen Stadium, one of the most daunting environments you can play in on the road. And guess what they did? They took care of business. They outscored Oregon. They track meted them. They out-sprinted them. And the thing that I love about this Indiana team is that not only are they better than they were last year, they know how to win any type of ball game they're going to be in. They went to Iowa. They played a tough, nasty, ugly game like most games are in Iowa. Well, what did they do? They made the plays to win. They found a way to win ugly. Then you go to Eugene. You play against a high-octane offense, a physical defense, just an environment that you do not want to play on the road. They handled their business. They outscored Oregon. They outpaced them. They played better defense. The quarterback battle that we talked about, Mendoza outplayed Dante Moore. So when you look at this Indiana team, if you've got any question marks about are they tough, do they have playmakers, are they well coached, do they have a good formula for success, Indiana's got it, and they more than deserve to be ranked as high as they do.
They remind me a little bit of some of these New England teams that maybe didn't have a whole lot of talent around Tom Brady, but you had like a team that never beat themselves, right? Elite coaching, elite quarterback. That's kind of what the formula is right here. Indiana doesn't beat themselves. Mendoza goes out and beats you.
What's the case to be the number one team, bud? They got some votes.
Yeah, I think they have a case to be the number one team based on resume so far. I think ultimately, though, the Big Ten is not getting some of the respect it probably deserves. Like, why are Oklahoma and Missouri over USC? Compare those resumes. Riddle me that one. I don't get that. Why is Texas over Michigan?
Michigan dropped out of the poll. Altogether after losing.
I think that's dragging
on the road at USC.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there's some interesting perceptions here there. But on the other side of that game was Oregon. They dropped to number 8 in the poll. What do you think this loss does to their college football playoff chances, if anything at all? No.
Nothing.
He's shaking his head. Nope.
Nothing. I think that everything that Oregon wants is still in front of them. And I think that going into this matchup, I said, whichever team wins, they're going to have a resume booster. Whichever team loses, they're going to probably be in a similar spot that they were going into the game. They just have another loss, but it's going to be against a top 10 opponent. A team, clearly, Oregon lost. They're still in the top 10, so I don't think this does anything for Oregon's playoff chances at all.
Sportsline obviously agrees with that, taking their chances down from 88% to 73% with this loss. It's dropping the bucket.
And that's pretty much in line with what we're seeing right now in the betting markets. I do think there was an important distinction, though. Oregon, if they had run the table, had a real chance to get a second bye for the Big Ten. I don't know if Indiana is going to be afforded that same respect. I do think if Oregon was 12-0, if they had lost in the conference title game, maybe to Ohio State, I think they had a great shot to be that 4 seed. Now they're probably going to have to play that extra playoff game.
Brad, should we look at this Oregon resume any differently now that we're seeing what the teams that they beat have done, like a Penn State, who we've been talking about all day long, and Oklahoma State?
I think we certainly should, Emily. There's no guarantee that Oregon's going to get a first-round home game in the playoff, much less make the playoff unless they win out. Look, a 10-win Oregon team with a loss to USC in November at home may not get in the playoff over a 9-win SEC if that SEC team has 3 or 4 ranked wins. You look at Oregon's body of work. Let's say the Ducks do lose to the Trojans late. USC gets in the playoff, also double-digit wins. Oregon won't have a single win over a ranked team except Penn State, who's likely not going to be bowl eligible after this disaster class shown by James Franklin. So right now, Oregon doesn't have any quality wins. Was the win at Penn State a couple weeks ago great when it happened? Yes. But in hindsight, that team is falling out of the rankings and probably ain't getting back in.
Yeah, that Penn State win has aged like milk. You mentioned the comparison between the Big Ten and the SEC. The SEC makes up half of the top 10 teams in this latest AP Top 25 poll. A conference we haven't talked about yet. How about the Big 12? It seems like it's looking like a 2-horse race between BYU and Texas Tech. What does it look like to you, Brad?
I think BYU, Cincinnati, and Utah are sort of vying for that second spot to play Texas Tech in the Big 12 championship game. Texas Tech is balling right now on both sides of the football. Total defense, top 5 in the country. Scoring offense right now is elite. And they're just doing it because of these portal acquisitions this offseason and a bunch of returning guys. Texas Tech last night against Kansas had a 4-point lead at halftime and then gave up like 2 yards to play and no points in the second half. Rolled the Jayhawks, who, by the way, have a decent offense. So Texas Tech's a team I don't think loses during the regular season. But BYU at Utah this week is going to be huge to sort of start the second half of the slate in the Big 12. You see they're still 3 unbeaten teams at the top of those league standings. So BYU, Cincinnati, and Utah, I think each have a shot at the playoff if they can get to the Big 12 championship game.
They all do, but we know when it comes to the Big 12, all roads go through Texas Tech. I mean, they are the fastest offense. They are one of the most explosive offenses. They put pressure on you on defense. They play more plays on offense. So even when they're offensively have the football, they're still putting pressure on the opposing offense because they're daring you. They're challenging you to keep up with them. Not a lot of teams can do it. I definitely don't think anybody in the Big 12 can do it. I would say the most favorable matchup, if I'm a team that wants to play Texas Tech, would be a Kalani Sitake BYU-led team because the foundation that they have, the fundamentals that they play with, that's how you combat speed, with good, clean fundamentals, keeping the ball in your hands, not giving them a bunch of extra opportunities. So I do think it's a two-man race between Texas Tech and BYU right now.
BYU is going to have to keep proving itself. They will be an underdog in 4 of their next 5 games, right? At Utah, at Iowa State, at Texas Tech, TCU, at Cincinnati. They have very slim margins so far against teams that are not very good. Colorado, Arizona, both single-score wins by a field goal and 6 points respectively there in overtime. BYU is decent, but I think they're also fortunate so far.
We should mention, too, in the Big 12, Iowa State and Arizona State have both dropped out of the AP Top 25 poll. But as Brad mentioned, you still have 3 undefeated teams in the Big 12. And ultimately, it looks like whoever wins that Big 12 title will punch their ticket to the college football playoff. Elsewhere in the G5, speaking of an automatic bid there, we got number 19 USF. They were at number 18 earlier in the season, coming off that win against Florida, but they're back in things. So how solid is USF in this playoff race, Bud?
I think it is the winner of the American Conference almost certainly going to get that Group of 5 playoff bid.
So not necessarily just USF. You think whoever ends up winning that conference? Because there's others vying for the title.
Navy, there's a couple others that are maybe still potentially in the race. I think USF probably has the most high-level athletes among the actual playoff contenders from the American, though.
Yeah, I would agree with Bud. I think the American champion is going to ultimately be the G5 representative. I look at Navy. I look at what Blake Horvath and the service academy. I mean, listen, we haven't talked enough about the service academies this year. They are putting on an offensive clinic. I mean, they are throwing the ball all around the yard. And then when you've got Blake Horvath that can do that and run the ball as well as he can throw it, this Navy team, they're going to be tough to beat, especially come towards the end of the season. But I'm absolutely with Bud. The winner of the American Conference, because they've got a lot of good teams, they're going to be the G5 representative.
Don't forget, fellas, in July, I'm the only national guy that had Navy as the G5.
How could we forget?
I'm with you. I'm with you, Brad.
Mid-season. But there's a game coming up in November at Navy for USF. I know USF has the talent advantage. Byron Brown, Alex Golesh, a great marriage right now this season. But Navy's a team that could give them trouble because they can play keep away. The Bulls are undoubtedly the G5 favorite, but there's still so much to be decided in the American. Possible matchup against Tulane later on in December in the American Championship game as well. So South Florida's got a chance at a couple more ranked wins this year to beefing that resume before they try to get that 11 or 12 seed in the bracket.
Another American team in the AP Top 25, Memphis at number 22. USF and Memphis play the week after next, so that one feels like it'll be a game for all the marbles. Also, shout out to Navy. They did get 11 votes in this poll, so they could find their way in at some point. I think there's somebody next to me who's itching to talk about his Alabama Crimson Tide.
You know what I am, and you know what? I'm going to, because how is Alabama ranked behind Ole Miss?
They're the number 3 team in the SEC, according to these rankings right now, behind Texas A&M and Ole Miss. So answer your own question.
To a bad Florida State team.
Okay, so that's why.
Okay.
Right.
All right.
All
right. So what did I say yesterday? We need to stop with that, Brad. We need to stop trying to evaluate Alabama based on what they did in week 1 on the road. They were down a couple players. We didn't talk a lot about that. And Florida State just happened to play their best game of the year while Alabama played their worst game of the year. But you cannot tell me anybody that after looking at yesterday, just week by week, I'm not taking the whole season into account, looking at yesterday, watching the performances of Alabama, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss, you cannot tell me that Alabama is the worst team out of those 3 right there. You can't. They went up against a team on the road, against the top rusher in the nation, against the number 4 offense, the number 2 defense in the country, and they took care of business. What did Ole Miss do yesterday? What did Texas A&M do yesterday? Now, granted,
both won.
They both won, but they don't look as good as this Alabama football team. When we're talking about just watching the tape, watching the play on the field, yes, I know we got to do the metrics. Yes, I know we got to compare schedules. Yes, I know we got to look at the fact that they lost to Florida State in week 1. They are the best team in the SEC right now, and I don't think it's close.
Any pushback, Bud?
No, I think Lane Kiffin's really kind of a master manipulator of the early.
Oh, is he?
I mean, look, they run up the score to try to juice up their power ratings, and they purposely schedule 4-0 in the non-conference every. They play nobody on purpose. They want that 0 in the loss column because the pollsters eat that up. I would push back a little bit. I think A&M does look really good, man. They beat Florida by 17. That offensive line, I think if they played Bama, they'd block Bama no problem. That game would be a shootout, in my opinion. I think that's probably the second best offensive line in the country. Second maybe only to Miami. But yeah, I agree. I think both these teams would physically bully Ole Miss.
Ole Miss did drop in the rankings after messing around with Washington State.
As
Potentially a look-ahead spot with Georgia coming up this Saturday. But Brad, what do you make of the Crimson Tide?
I'm with Damien here. Look, in my CBS 136 this morning, I submitted it to Jack hours ago. Alabama's my top SEC team. Damien's right. They've looked the part now after week 6. They're better than Ole Miss, slightly better than Texas A&M. Marcel Reed starting to get it together a little bit offensively. But Ty Simpson right now, he should be the Heisman frontrunner, not Carson Beck, not anybody else. Ty Simpson is a guy that has been the orchestrator of 3 consecutive top 25 wins at Bama, something Nick Saban only did 1 time in 17 years over consecutive weeks. Kalen DeBoer has done it in season 2.
I like this guy, Brad.
I don't know why you're getting so heated. They agree with you. Everybody's on your side.
Well,
except for maybe me. That's why I'm wearing orange.
Yeah. Honestly, that get up you got on, it kind of got me a little fired up. I don't know why.
Damien,
I don't know why.
Yeah.
Oh, wait. Is it time?
Saturday
the third Saturday in October.
Yeah, I'm going to slowly inch away from Damien Harris. But don't worry. We're all in agreement here that Alabama should be a little bit higher, but win some more games and you'll get there. Except for this Saturday. Right. Brad, thank you so much for being here. Bud, Damien, appreciate it. Make sure that you are checking out the College Football Insiders podcast. I believe they just went live with an emergency podcast talking about James Franklin and Penn State. So if you missed that because you were watching us, thank you, but you can go check it out later. You can watch on YouTube by scanning that QR code or listen wherever you find your podcasts.